Hello everybody, and thank you for joining me to talk about SRP. That's the Professional Services Automation component of NetSuite. Today we'll be spending time on just kind of running through the advanced projects and project management component of NetSuite, looking at functionality relative to project resource capacity and allocation, project labor, utilization tracking, timesheet and expense report processing, really a lot of things that relate to project job costing and how NetSuite handles them. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into kind of looking at some of the main components of NetSuite SRP. So we've got an advanced project module. Within that advanced project module, we can manage multiple project types. Quick and efficient creation of projects through templates. We can actually do some resource capacity planning through a suite app that we can install with NetSuite Advanced Projects. We can organize tasks and maintain activities, update activities on a real-time basis, track time and expenses through NetSuite's timesheet and expense reporting process. And then we can measure performance of our projects through various project reports and KPIs. Okay, so let's jump right into it. So we'll take a look at the application. I'm going to go ahead and switch over my screen so we can see the NetSuite application. All right, so I'm logged in as Mark here, as you can see. NetSuite is a role-based application, so when you log in, you only see the things that you would be working on a day-to-day basis within NetSuite. You can see here I'm on the home page. On the home page I've got various portlets or sections on my home page that can be related to things such as reminders or navigation throughout the application, recent records that I've actually used, or just different types of lists and summary information that I might need to have at my fingertips. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started and taking a look at creating projects. So creating projects within NetSuite SRP is very simple. We can actually leverage templates to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my project templates. Here I've got several project templates. I'll go ahead and leverage my equipment installation template. So let's go ahead and view that template. So as we can see, we've got tasks that are pre-set up, various pieces of information on the project that we don't have to deal with setting up each time we want to create a project. So all I do here is click on Create Project. I'm going to give my project a name. We'll call it Equipment Install, and we'll click OK. And then we'll let NetSuite go out and create that project from the template. So you can see up to the top left, we now have project 1171. We can set up our prefix that we want. In this case, I've got PRJ as my prefix to my project number, and we've got a project name. Various bits of information are working on coming over onto that project record we've just created using the template. But we've got a little bit of header information here in terms of, like I said, the project ID, the name, and the status, who the project manager is, and what subsidiary that project belongs to, because we're in the NetSuite One World multi-subsidiary environment here. So we've got some scheduled dates and estimated work, again, that's coming over from the template. Let's reload that page and see if we've got our tasks allocated from the template, and we do. So you can see now we've got on our project 1171 all of our tasks listed. Let's put that project in edit mode so we can come out here and we can assign that project to a specific customer. So I'll drop down my customer list. I'm going to go ahead and set up Abbott as my customer on this project. So now that we've got that selected, we can put in some comments relative to what this project is about. I'm going to go ahead and leave my scheduled start date and calculated end date, which is all being done based on the effort that's been associated to the tasks on the project. A couple things down here on these tasks that came over from the template. If I drill back on one of the tasks, you see that generic resources have actually been assigned to that specific task. This is the Solution Design Review on-site task. So I've got some generic resources here that will eventually replace with specific resources within the project. Okay. I've got some other tasks here that are labeled as milestone tasks. You can see that here with the little icon that looks like a sun. Down here, those are milestone tasks, and we'll be leveraging those milestone tasks to actually do the billing. within NetSuite or within this project. I can do project resource allocations right from the project itself, and we'll also take a look at the resource allocation grid and do some allocations from there. But if I click on the resources sub-tab and click new resource allocation, I can go ahead and do an allocation of a resource right here from the project. So I'm going to select Mark. We'll assign 1171 to this allocation. Leave the start date as is. We'll drop the end date out to sometime in the next month, and we're going to allocate about 20 hours of Mark's time. We can do hard and soft allocations from here. I'll leave this as a hard specific allocation that cannot be changed, and we'll go ahead and save that. Okay, that adds Mark as a resource to the project and also gives us the ability to save off this project and then set Mark as the project manager. So I'm going to go ahead and put that project back in edit mode. We'll go over to the resources tab, and when we do that, you can see here that we've got various resources listed. Oops, there we go. Various resources listed in the resource list, Mark being one of them, and I'm going to set his role here as project manager. Click OK, and we're going to save that. Okay, so now with Mark being assigned as the project manager for project 1171, this gives him the ability to actually go in and set additional resource allocations for this project that's now been created. Okay, we can do that using the resource allocation grid. So let's go out to the resource allocation grid, which is found here. The resource allocation grid is a suite app, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, a suite app that's loaded into the application once you've enabled the resource capacity planning functionality within your NetSuite SRP instance. It really just gives us more of a visual in terms of being able to see where project resources are assigned. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a few new resource allocations from the resource allocation grid. So let's drop down and we're going to assign a couple more resources. The first one being Abigail Khan to project 1171, our equipment install, start date of 6/22, and then we'll drop that again out to an end date of around 7/14. We're going to allocate a percentage of Abigail's time, let's say 15% as a hard allocation. We'll say OK. We're going to do another resource allocation. So this time we're going to go out and we're going to get a resource named Abby Kwan. So to project 1171, the equipment install, and again setting an end date for that particular project. We'll allocate about 5% of Abby's time to this project. And we'll do one more resource allocation. And we're going to do that against one of the resources named Larry. Larry's going to be our install expert. So we're going to set his allocation to a slightly different time frame. So we'll set that to around July, let's say July the 4th, which really should be July the 5th because we want to give Larry some time off. And we'll end that on, let's see, around 7/14, the other end dates that we use. So we're going to allocate about 15% of Larry's time to that project as well. Okay, let's go ahead and save that off and let the system create those resource allocations. Okay, those have been successfully saved. We can see them being visually represented here, and as I hover over each one of those allocations, it gives me a little more detail relative to that specific record. Okay, so let's jump back into our project. By doing that, I'm going to come over to the Resources sub-tab, and I can see that I've got several resources listed here. Right before we only had Mark listed, he was the project manager, but since I did those allocations over there on the resource allocation grid, that brought the other resources onto the project to where I can start assigning those resources to specific tasks within the project. Okay, so remember we looked at the project, an example of a task where we had specific generic resources listed. Now we can, since we've done the allocations for that project, we can actually replace those resources with specific resources. So back on the resource list page, I can come in here and I can see my allocated resources, and Mark, as the manager, can now reallocate these. Well, I know as a project manager, Mark, being logged in here, is going to be allocated to all the project management specific tasks and time. So we can go ahead and process that. So that will replace Mark with all the generic project manager task assignments. Okay, so we'll try and push this one along here. Okay, and if we go back in and we do a few more allocations, we can, or a few more replacements, we can replace Abigail Kahn as the technical resource on the project. So we'll let that refresh. And just a couple more assignments of specific resources to the generic. So Abby Kwan is going to be our consultant. So we'll go ahead and select her to replace the consultant resource. And as I mentioned earlier, Larry is going to be our installer. So any tasks associated with the installation of the equipment, we can set Larry up as that specific task. Specific resource, I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, so we've got all the resources assigned. So we don't have any more generic resources listed here. And if I drill back into that project task again, we can see we've got specific resources assigned to those tasks. All right, so kind of looking at the tasks and just drilling in a little bit more, we get some opportunities kind of like in other applications you've used where you've managed tasks. We can set predecessors, so we can introduce lead and lag time into our schedule. Obviously we can set effort, so my estimated work related to that task. Constraint types in terms of starting as soon as possible or as late as possible, that type of thing, and then setting start and end dates on our tasks. Also other parameters as to whether or not this task is billable, and that kind of thing. Okay, we have the ability to copy tasks. We can easily create or recreate a task that's similar to the one we created before using that copy feature. So a lot of good functionality there in terms of being able to manage the tasks or the schedule within the application. And then it shows us here, you know, kind of where things stand relative to the Gantt chart. So we can view an actual Gantt chart, which we'll take a look at a little bit later. But the Gantt chart will be reflective of the tasks, their predecessors, and how they're all related from a timeline perspective. And as we start filling out timesheets, you'll see the % complete of that task start to change as effort gets. Okay, so we've covered off the schedule task. We talked about resources. Let's jump over to the financial tab. So on the financial tab, you'll see that we start to introduce some concepts relative to billing and billing types within NetSuite SRP. So the billing types, just spending a few minutes on that, there are a few different billing types within the application. The first is a time materials billing. So we can certainly bill customers for actual project expenses, time, materials, that type of thing. We can start leveraging some of the other functionality, core billing functionality within NetSuite to do fixed bid interval-based, date interval-based type billings, where we're actually setting up a billing schedule to bill at predetermined or predefined intervals. We can do fixed bid milestone. It's another type of project where we can bill customers on a % complete or preset milestones within the project, kind of like we're doing here on this one. Or we can use charge-based project billing. So if we use charge-based project billing, that really leverages a rules engine that creates charge ID records within NetSuite. So we can set up actual rules to evaluate certain conditions within the system, and if those conditions arise, then the billing engine will catch them and generate pending charges that you can review and then ultimately bring onto an invoice. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to set up we're using the charge-based billing type. So that means we've got our rules that we can set up down here. So here we've got our charges queue. We don't have any charges in there yet, but we will soon. We can see when the charge-based engine runs and all the historical activity associated to that. And then I've got my fixed fee rules or milestone-based rules, my time material-based rules, and my expense-based rules that I can set up from a charge-based billing standpoint. So if I come in here to fixed fee rules, I can set up a couple milestone rules. You remember when we were looking at the project tasks, I had a task related to a milestone task related to contract signature, and then a milestone task related to completing the installation. So we'll leverage both those tasks as milestones and we'll bill against them in this project. So the first one we'll set up is a contract signature milestone rule. We'll associate it to that task, which was the contract signature task. We're going to give that an amount of $2,000, and we're going to associate that to a contract signature item. The item really drives the GL impact of the transaction that will ultimately result from this charge. We can put some description in there relative to this rule for the project if we like. I'm going to save that off. We had another milestone in there for installation, so I'm going to go ahead and set that one up as well. So as soon as that one saves, I can create a new milestone rule, and we can call it installation complete. We'll associate it to our installation complete milestone task on our project, and we'll bill that one out at $18,000 to kind of complete that $20,000 mark for total billings, and then we'll associate this to an installation complete task, which will help drive our accounting, and we'll save that off. So now I have two milestone rules set up on my project. You can see them down there below. I've got contract signature, installation complete. This is not a T&M based project, so I'm going to skip over the time-based rules, but I am going to set up an expense-based rule. The reason I want to do that could perhaps be that any project expenses that I incur during the course of delivering on this project, I may want to bill them straight through to the client or to the customer. So I can do that by creating an expense-based rule. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll create one called project expenses. We're just going to pass through those costs to our client. We won't mark them up or we won't discount them, but we will let the system take a look and see when these conditions exist. So if it's any of these transaction types where they're marked as billable and the status is as such, then we want to go ahead and capture that as a pass-through project charge to our client. So let's save off that rule. So now we have all of our rules set up on our project. So we're good to go there. As those charges begin to build up, we'll see that in our pending queues here in just a little bit. Scooting on over to the budget sub-tab. So I can go ahead and put the project in edit mode, because I can set up a budget against the project from a cost perspective as well as from a billing perspective. You can see here my focus is on the cost component now. So I can use values that get automatically calculated from NetSuite to insert that cost budget or that labor budget into my cost budget bucket here, or I can actually enter that manually as well. So if I know my project labor is going to be somewhere around $3,000 in this case, I can enter $3,000 and I can let NetSuite sort of distribute that across the periods that the project will appear to be open, or I can set those in specific amounts per period if I'd like. I'm just going to go ahead and leave $1,500 per period. We'll set an expense budget of, call it $800. And again, we're going to just let NetSuite distribute that, and then we'll set a supplier budget, so any maybe vendor bills that come through based on, remember the expense-based rule we just set up, any of those that get passed through and allocated to a project, then we can capture that as well. So we'll say that about $1,000 there, 500 in June, 500 in July, and now we've got our cost budget set. So we'll save off that cost budget, and once these get recorded to values get recorded to our budget, then we can come in here and we can actually set our billing budget as well. So moving on over to the billing budget. Oh, we got to let this save just a little bit longer here. Seems to be running a little bit on the slow side. That's okay. We'll just give it some time. All right, so looking at the back in the budget subtab, we'll go over to the billing budget, put this in edit mode again. So we can come over here and we can use calculated values for the billing budget. So the calculated values will go and take a look at the charge-based rules that we've entered into the solution, and it'll propose the budget from a billing perspective. So I can use that, or we can come in here and we say, we know that we're going to bill right around that 20,000, oops, not 200,000 mark, but 20,000 mark. So let's go ahead and put that back in. And if we let NetSuite distribute that, it'll distribute it evenly between the two periods. We know that we're going to bill 2,000 in the June time frame, and we'll bill 18 in the July time frame. That's what we're expecting anyway. So we can go ahead and distribute that as we'd like and then save that off. Okay, so we've set our cost budget, we've set our billing budget, we've set up our resources, and we brought all of our tasks in kind of already set from the template within the project. So we've moved along, we've allocated our resources, we've got our project manager set. Everything is looking good in terms of getting our project set up. So now that we've got most of it already set up, we really can start processing transactions against the project. So when we do that, or before we do that, we can actually look at what our estimated billing is, what our estimated costs are, estimated gross margin on that particular project, and that's all visible on the project P&L tab. Okay, over on the Related Transaction tab, as we start to process transactions, timesheets, expense reports, vendor bills, those types of things, all that information, all those transactions are going to be accumulated into these different queues down here, invoices, vendor-related or supplier-related or expense report type transactions and timesheets. Those will all get captured and allocated to the project and queued up in one single spot. So I can bring this project up and I can, just in one location, view everything related to this specific project. Okay, so let's go ahead and set the baseline for this project. So we've got everything created, we've got all of our tasks set. I'm going to click the Set Baseline button. That's going to go ahead and set a work baseline, enter our last date baseline, just making sure that we've got a baseline set for this project. Now the baseline can be updated as many times as you want to update it within the project. Okay, so now that we've got that all set, I'm going to go ahead and jump in as Abigail. As you remember, Abigail was one of the resources. She was the technical consultant that we allocated this project, so she's going to be doing some of that technical work. So we're going to pretend that she's done some of that work and she's going to be entering her timesheet. So Abigail comes over and she logs into the NetSuite Employee Center. You can see over here she's got the Employee Center role. It's a very simple format. Really kind of gives you the ability to input a timesheet, input an expense report, maybe a purchase requisition, do some things relative to reminders and tasks that you may have set up, and view different types of information. So Abigail's done some work on this project. It's time for her to fill out her timesheet. So she'll go up and she's going to select the project that we've created. She'll associate the time through selecting a specific task. So she maybe did some equipment solution design work. She did that on Monday, so we can say she did maybe 8 hours of that. If Abigail needs to put any kind of notes relative to the work she did, she can put notes in this memo field here, and those will stay with that timesheet entry. So, she designed solution and prepared documentation. So we say OK, and now we can see that we've got a note associated to those 8 hours. So Abigail can add that line, and she can come in here and add a few more lines if she'd like. So we've got, she's designed the solution, so maybe she gets an opportunity to do a solution design review. So she spends a couple hours, maybe 4, let's say, on Wednesday, and then she presented the solution design review to the client. And she's good to go there. So the solution design review went well, so Abby's going to go ahead and on Thursday she's going to record some time, call it, I can do 10 hours or something, oops, 10 hours, oops, I jumped ahead, and she can spend that doing drafting the contract. So she had a long day of drafting up a very complicated contract and learning how to spell. All right, so there you go. So now Abby's got her time recorded to the project and the specific task with specific times and notes associated to those times. So Abigail can either save or submit. In this case, we're just going to have her submit her timesheet. So that timesheet submission gets saved off and will actually be routed through to Abigail's timesheet approver. Okay, and then the time that sits in Abigail's queue will be color coded so that she can notice, can see whether it's pending approval, it's been approved, or it's been rejected. Just a note that the timesheet interface that you see now, I think there's some changes coming to this timesheet interface and the way that timesheets route within the application in one of NetSuite's upcoming releases, hopefully in 2016.2, which will just be in a few months here. Okay, so Abigail has her time entered. Abigail's time approver happens to be Mark. So if Mark logs in and comes over and checks to see what's going on, he'll see that he's got now 9 timesheets to approve. So he can click on his reminders list there, and then he sees Abigail's time. Okay, so he can drill into that time and take a look at the detail, or he can select it here and go ahead and approve that time. Okay, there's one more step in that process. As it stands right now, that time will have to be posted, and that posting of the time actually creates the GL impact for that time, so that the labor amount can actually get recorded to the project. All right, but in terms of the amount of time, the hours that we just posted, or that Abby just created and Mark just approved, the number of hours are now in real time recorded against the project. Okay, so if we go back into that project, I'm just going to use my recent records to do that, then we can see under related transactions and under timesheets, we've got some actual time that Abby just booked that's been approved against that project. Okay, so Abigail has now processed some time, and then we have a different consultant whose name is Abby Kwan and is also logged into the Employee Center. Abby now needs to process an expense report. And this expense report is are for expenses related to the 1171 project we've been looking at. So Abby will click on the Enter Expenses link from her home page in the Employee Center. We can set a department and a classification to this particular expense report transaction. We can set a purpose, and away we go with filling out the expense report. So we've got to select our project. Okay. Just select our category, our expense category, and again, the expense category is what helps us drive the specific GL impact related to this expense report line. In this case, we're in that multi-subsidiary environment, so it's asking for a currency. And we've got a note that, or a flag that automatically checks it as billable. So we've got miscellaneous expenses for, call it $559. All right, there we go. So we got our memo in there. These are either going to be reimbursable or non-reimbursable. We can note that there. And we have a paper receipt, and we can actually attach that receipt to the expense report line. We can do that right from the NetSuite file cabinet, or we can do that from our computer as well. Okay, so we've added that line. So Abby can continue to fill out her expense report and just kind of keep on going and get that completely done. Once she's done, she can actually submit that report. So she's got that submitted. Now it's pending supervisor approval. So coincidentally, we've got Mark as the expense report approver for Abby Kwan. So if Mark comes into his home page, he'll now have an additional expense report to approve. So we can see here he's got 6 expense reports to approve. One of those should be Abby's that we just processed. So if we drill into that queue, so we can see that Mark's got a project expenses, expense report number 84 ready for approval. So he can drill into that expense report, put it in edit mode. We're actually going to set that expense report to not only approve, but we're going to set the accounting approval as well. So we've got a couple of levels of approval, both Mark's supervisor approval as well as an accounting approval step. So in this case, after Mark approves it, it would go through an accounting approval process as well, or accounting approval step. And then once accounting approves it, then it's ready to be processed fully. So in this case, I can hit the approve button and fully approve this. And so we're going to do that. I've already set the supervisor and the accounting approval, so we've got it kind of fully processed through the approval hierarchy at this point. Okay, so I kind of jumped, kind of skipped that accounting approval step so that we could see, if we jump back into the project, we could see that this expense report is now allocated to the project. Okay, so there's the expense report number 84 for $559. Okay, so we're also seeing that on our P&L tab within the project, we talked about a little bit earlier, we're starting to see some of those expenses posting up against the project. So the last thing I want to show is just entering that vendor bill against the project. So let's go ahead and initiate a vendor bill. We can put in our vendor bill reference number or vendor bill document number, select our vendor, let the subsidiary come in, and we got $1,100 worth of expenses that we're going to allocate to the project. Okay. We can select our category. Again, that category is going to drive the GL account and the GL impact. So select our project, brings in the amount, put in our memo, mark that as billable, add the line, and save that off. Okay, so now we've got our vendor bill that we've entered into NetSuite and allocated to project 1171. Okay, so we've taken care of most of the expenses related to that project. Let's go ahead and run through a billing process. So Mark Collins, the project manager, has now received word that we've got the signed contract, which is great. So Mark can go into the projects list and we can pull up our project 1171. Next to our project here we've got this little icon that looks kind of like a dial. That's actually a dashboard for that specific project. So we can drill into that project dashboard and we can see some information relative to project 1171. Okay, I've got projects, I've got information here that's kind of handy relative to, we've got milestones that are due in the next 9 days or things that are happening on this specific project. Down here you can see our Gantt chart and where we stand relative to percent complete on certain tasks. As we know, Abigail Kahn has posted some time to the project, so we can see here we've got some percent complete or some progress that's being noted on the specific project task. Okay, we've got an overall percentage complete of 32%, and we've got some information here relative to kind of some project KPIs as we we continue to process transactions here. Okay, so let's go ahead and drill into that project. I'm going to come into the project tabs, the first one, the contract signature. We're going to edit that. As the project manager, like I said, I know that we've completed the contract signature milestone. So I'm going to go ahead and change the status and save that off. I have a communication tab down here where I can add all kinds of notes relative to what happened with that particular milestone. And those notes will get recorded and stay with that project forever. And they get users and date time stamped, so you've got all the information you need relative to communication or file attachments, signed documents, signed paperwork, all can be attached to that specific milestone task within the project. Now that we've got that that milestone set as complete, if we come over here to our financial tab, we can see that our charge-based engine recognized that we have a completed milestone for $2,000, and it created a charge ID, created an actual charge record for that milestone being completed. Right, and that's all based on the rules that we set up. Right, remember we set up the contract signature and installation complete rule. So over here we set up an expense-based rule as well, which the charge engine has not picked up yet. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to generate charges. I'm going to kind of cheat a little bit and we'll execute that engine. So it'll run here and then it should pick up that other supplier invoice that we entered into NetSuite for something like $1,100. So coming back in here, looks like it did create that, or it did capture that charge. So now we have our charge for the $1,100, and then we also have our expense report for $559. So those are both going to be set as pass-through expenses within the project. Right? We're going to pass through that $559, and we're going to pass through that supplier invoice project expense that we incurred. Okay, so now that we've got our charges over here, we can see over in the P&L tab that we have, in the financial tab that we've got $3,659 of pending charges sitting on our project. Right? We still have $20,000 remaining because we haven't billed any of it. Right? But as we start to process some of these billings, you'll see some of those queued up amounts change. Okay, if there's no revenue recognition that we have to address here, which in this particular project there's not, then we can jump right into our transactions clients invoice billable clients queue. Okay, we can see here we've got some accounting relative to the AR account we're going to be hitting, the various things that we're looking for, what we should be billing, and then it's proposing different charges on projects that we should be looking at. We're only interested today in 1171, so we're going to take a look at that one. We can go ahead and drill back on that proposed invoice. Again, it's not an invoice in the system yet, but these are charge records that are being proposed to be put onto an invoice. Okay. So we've got here a couple items from an expense perspective and a contract signature milestone being brought in for a total of $3,659 on this invoice. So we'll save that invoice off. It's invoice number 772. So that's officially set as an AR invoice against that client trial balance within the system, and it's also been allocated to the project. So we come back over here underneath the related transactions subtab. We can say that under the sales queue, we've got invoice number 772 for $36.59 ready to go. Okay, we can print out that invoice. We can send it depending upon the customer or client preferences. We can email that off based on a schedule and process the invoice from there. Okay. So looking at that project dashboard, we've got some pretty good things going with the project. So we're about 32% complete on that project. We've billed a couple $1,000s. We got about $18,000 remaining next month. We've got some expenses that we've incurred, but we know we've passed those through, so we're pretty well covered. And then we've got all the information relative to project status and tasks, and then a little bit of a P&L portlet down here so we can keep an eye on how we're doing from a gross margin perspective. All right, so just a little bit about kind of measuring kind of project activity. We've got lots of project reports in terms of budget versus actual, project profitability. If I drill into project profitability, we'll just take a quick look at that one. We can see some information related to 1171, total costs and income, gross margin information, that type of thing. It just gives us a little bit of information about where we stand with that project. We can drill into specific transactions right from the report. So this takes us to the specific transaction in more of a detailed, from a detailed perspective, and then if we want, we can drill into the actual invoice as well. So if I want to see that report right from the, see that expense report right from the project report, then I can click on that line and drill into the actual transaction that's being reflected on that project report. Okay, so lots of good information relative to what is being tracked on your projects. So that about wraps it up. So that's the NetSuite SRP functionality. We covered off not all the features, but a good number of them to really kind of get you familiarized with advanced projects, resource capacity and allocation, timesheet and expense report tracking, as well as some of the billing functionality and reporting that's available in NetSuite SRP. Well, that's it for today. Again, I really appreciate you folks joining me, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thanks.